1, 2, 3, go! These on the day! These on the day! Do the intro.
Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast.
Good job.
Awesome.
Happy New Year, everyone. What if, instead of making a million resolutions, we started with good rhythms? What if we dared to take the time to let our soul rest and restore, connect and create, just like Rebekah Lyons talks about in her book, and that informed how we did our whole entire year. 2020 vision, you hear me? I mean, I want to thrive this year from an inner soul place, not just from an external doing, achieving place. I want to get to the end of each day and not just evaluate whether it was good or not based on what I did, on what I achieved, but more on how I feel. Do I feel connected to my family? Have I given them my full attention? Do I feel connected to my people? Do I have real people in my life? Or have I spent most of my day on IG or on a screen talking to people that can't ultimately love me back in person, and vice versa? These are the kinds of questions we dive into today on the podcast with our guest, Rebekah Lyons. She's the author of an incredible book. If you haven't already read it, go grab it now. It's on Amazon. It's everywhere. Rhythms of Renewal, Trading Stress and Anxiety for a Life of Peace and Purpose. Amen. Who else needs that in their life? I want to live that way. I don't just want to live from breakthrough moment to breakthrough moment with major highs and major lows. I can do that once in a while. That's why building rhythms in is so important. Rebekah got so honest, which I really appreciated because I'm in a season of new mom and doing career. And she took us back to when she had her son, Cade, with Down syndrome and just the journey she was on, trying to find herself within that while being a mom and learning and trying to also be an entrepreneur. And she was just really, really honest. And so I think to every mom and also every college student, anyone who's dealing with maybe not feeling super balanced and rested or connected or like they're thriving creatively, let's get to the root of that. Let's build in these rhythms right at the top of the year so that we can thrive, not just survive, so that we can live with purpose and peace, not from stress and anxiety as we jump into 2020. So I hope this conversation is life-giving for you. It definitely was for me. I would grab a pen and a paper and take notes if you're not driving. Okay, let's do this. Hey, I'm Jody.
And I'm Chris.
And we are Loving the Outcome. Welcome to our podcast.
We're a husband and wife who rock out together.
We're parents of Milo and Ziggy.
And we're following Jesus as best we can.
Our story began in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where we fell in love, got married, and decided to sell everything and travel in our Jetta, selling CDs out of the trunk of our car.
The road led us to Nashville, where we signed a record deal, started our family, and now the four of us travel together in our minibus, White Neptune.
I know, crazy, right? Our life is a road trip.
And we want to invite you into it.
So come along for the ride as we chat with some of our favorite people about family, spirituality, wellness,
And of course, music.
Come on, let's go.
Hey everyone, Happy New Year.
Happy 2020.
Happy 2020.
Goodness. Wow. Have you been reflecting over the last decade?
I've been digesting.
Napping
and digesting, yes. There was far too much good food.
That's fair.
In our house.
It's always such a funny thing because we played New Year's Eve. So really until you're done that show, you can't jump into the next year.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's taken this last week, the first week of January, to just kind of, okay, let it all sink in and start dreaming. Because I want to dream before I dive into like the doing, you know?
Right.
So I've been dreaming a lot.
Dreaming and digesting. And watching football.
Of course, the football. I hope you guys had an awesome, awesome New Year. And I think it's really cool, this 2020 vision thing, you know, this second to take and just go, yeah, what do I really feel like I'm supposed to be spending my time and energy on? And even more than that, like just self-awareness, like what makes me happy? What do I want to build margin in my life for? And that's why I'm so stoked about this podcast, because I feel like Rebekah Lyons, her book is called Rhythms of Renewal. And it's not just about breakthrough. I'm telling you because I know you haven't read it, and I have, and I'm a huge fan. But to all of you who haven't read it yet, it is such a killer way, I think, to start the new year, because it's not just about momentary breakthrough. It's about living a life of rhythm, so that you're not just going from high to low to high to low. You're really able to maintain this really healthy rhythm of life where you're constantly being renewed day by day, like God talks about. And I think it's possible. She's got me thinking it's possible.
Well, there were 4 of them, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's kind of good at one of them?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So
Okay.
I guess in her book, if you go online, RebekahLyons.com, we'll link to it in the show notes. But you can do a quick 5-minute quiz. And you're either, it's so basically rest. Oh, I'm not going to go through them in the right
That's
order.
me.
But yeah, everybody's really strong at one or the other. And connection, I think, is one that I'm really strong at. So go check it out, figure out what rhythm you're naturally great at, and maybe the other ones, how you could kind of bring those into your life and make it a little bit more, I mean, if you're not a good rester and a good napper, just DM Chris. He'll help you out. I'm totally bugging you.
It'll probably take a while for me to get back to you.
We had such a blast, though. I mean, we took the boys on the road. We went to Canada. Shout out to anyone who came out to the warm-up tour.
The warm-up tour?
That was so much fun. I mean, it was freezing, frigid, cold, hard touring, but the people that came were warm and amazing, and so that made it totally worth it. But this year is going to be amazing. Speaking of touring, we've got lots coming up. What do we have coming up?
Well, I mean, just in January, we're playing in Los Angeles. I guess when this goes to air, it'll be the next weekend. So January 18th, we're playing at One Life LA, downtown LA.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome. There's a lot of great speakers and guests for that. It's kind of like just in the state park in LA.
Amazing.
And then
I'm acting like I don't know because he does all the details for the show, so I don't really know. I'm like, that sounds fun.
And then the next week we're playing at Victory Church in Florida.
Yeah, they're
Boca.
they're in the university there, right?
Yeah, they made it Florida Atlantic University. They outgrew their
so
church
cool.
space, and
I love
now
that.
they meet there. So that's really fun. And then we're going to be on the K-Love cruise.
Yeah, man, that's a
is-
busy January. I better get ready. I
It
gotta
is.
go pack.
Yeah.
See you guys later. I'm always packed, just joking. That's one of my rhythms. I'm always pseudo-packed.
Right,
We
right.
buy things in teeny tiny containers. Like, we never buy full size. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Travel size.
Well, I think one of the lessons we learned this year is we just pack our stuff into very small suitcases instead of one big suitcase.
That's right. The boys are almost big enough that they can pull their own suitcase
That's right.
through the airport. We're
It's
not
gonna be
quite
amazing.
there. Well, yeah, that's what's up in our life. And we're really excited, too, because you got this, which became a favorite of you guys. We've just been hearing tons of tweets and how it's your song that gets you through surgery and your song that gets you through chemo. And honestly, I don't know if there's a better 2020 motto than "you got this," and the reason you got it is because he's got you covered, and that's why we wrote it. So I'm hoping it can be your New Year jam. Thanks to Caleb for just adding it, and the song is still on the move. So just keep requesting it on radio and listening to it online. So yeah, add it to your playlist. We actually have a few Love in the Outcome playlists you can find on Spotify and Pandora, Apple Music. So check those out. And like always, if this podcast is life-giving to you, honestly, I really hope so, because otherwise I don't know why we're doing it. But that's our plan. Our goal is that this year, that our little life lessons, that we could give them back to you guys and be like, hey, I hope this brings joy in your car as you're driving to that meeting, driving to college, about to do that exam, about to be a mom or a dad all day long. Maybe you're multitasking work and parenting. I don't know where you're at today, but our prayer is that this podcast finds you right where you're at and gives life to your day. So subscribe if you haven't already, and give us a review. We read those. We love hearing what you think about the podcast, and share it with a friend. So thanks for tuning in. Let's go.
Go Vikings.
Don't know the way, but you got this. Give me the faith that you got this. Even today, you got this. I know that you got this.
Hey, Rebekah.
Hi.
Thank you for being on the podcast in person in Nashville. If you guys don't know Rebekah, you need to know her. I follow you pretty closely on social media.
Oh.
And I'm super inspired, honestly,
Wow,
by
thank
watching how
you.
you do. Okay, you're a mom of 4. You're
Yes.
an author, speaker. You're all over the place. You look so good. I'm like, girl,
you
tell me
look
all
good.
the secrets.
I'm looking at your bangs going, could I do that again?
Oh,
I got
man.
bangs when my first book came out in 2013.
Really?
Yes. I was in New York and I had the Manhattan haircut where I was like, can you do them where they look effortless? And they
Yeah.
always did until
Now.
week 5, and then they would start to like curl, and I was like, all right. So I had a hard
I
time
know.
keeping
I
it.
hear you.
But that look is...
You're very sweet. It gets to the point. I can still see you, but it's getting
No,
close.
but that's the right length. That's when it's like kind
Yeah.
of like messy, wispy. But then it
Yeah.
would be almost irritating and then get...
They can be.
No, you're pulling it off. I'm impressed.
You know what? It happened so quick. I had to learn how to trim them. 'Cause
You
I'm
did?
like, I'm
Yeah,
not
well, you
driving
do.
all
You
the
do.
way. Well,
Right.
East Nashville, for those of you
All-
that live,
all
it's
the
not
way.
that bad. It's really not that bad.
It's like 7 minutes.
It's like,
For me,
yeah.
it would be about 40.
It's lame.
5.
But you're like, to take a 2 and a 3-year-old to go get my bangs
true.
trimmed, I'm
No.
just going to trim my bangs.
Yeah, yeah.
But sometimes better than other times. But thanks for the compliment. I should have just said thank you. I had long hair to here until... So Milo and Ziggy was about, I just finished nursing him, and it was a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
I had been kind of hiding behind my hair.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Interesting.
long. I didn't have bangs. It just had always been my thing.
Yeah.
And I have like nice thick hair, and I don't love my nose. So it always kind of, without really
Wow.
ever giving voice to it,
Yeah.
it was just kind of this thing, or it was like
Yeah.
kind of hiding. And I remember we were in Toronto to do a music video, and I was just going in to get it like kind of trimmed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, chop it.
You go, girl.
Chop it off.
Yeah.
If I can have babies, I can get bangs.
Yes,
I
you
can
can.
chop my hair.
Yes, you can.
And it was so life-giving and freeing.
Yeah.
To just be like, okay, I like something about having kids and going, it took me about 2 years post to understand what had happened.
Right. I agree. It's like shell shock. You're like, I don't have
Totally.
language for what I've never done before.
Yeah, no, and like where that superpower, I know where it comes from, but like until you've, all the things, this is not what this podcast
I know.
is about.
Sorry, we are already distracted by
But-
hair and fashion, but let's
But
go.
I hear you, like sometimes connecting hair to a new venture is like a thing.
Yeah.
I could see
I
you
actually
both
just
ways.
got cut this, like it was here all year and really for the last few, and then like a month ago after the book came out. So
I love it.
She offered to cut it. I want to get it like completely blunt, but because my
yeah.
hair is not as thick as yours.
It looks great. I honestly too, it's been flipping out. Anyway,
We're gonna move
yeah,
on.
we'll
but,
move on. But New York
we
City,
should do a hair one.
we should. Everyone's like, no,
You
keep going,
should.
keep going. Did you find a good hairdresser when you moved here? Because you
I
probably
did.
had it dialed in.
I
New York.
did. I did have it dialed in.
Yeah.
It was a Rojo. You know
Okay.
that like
It
that was
sounds
that
familiar.
that was that TV show actually down
Oh.
in Soho. There was like oh man, I forget the name of the TV show, but it was like the guy who started a Rojo studio.
Okay.
Was the hair guy from that. I'm not helpful
Man.
because I can't remember the name. But anyways, yeah, I had a stylist.
Because
on
it's
there
a
I
big
loved.
deal. Like
Yeah.
you end up talking to them about life.
I started with
and-
Bumble in Midtown
Oh,
when
yeah.
I lived on Upper East Side the
Okay.
first 2 years,
Oh,
and then
nice.
moved downtown the
Okay.
last 2. So had to change.
Had to change.
I'm not willing, just like here.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to go like an hour each way for hair.
It's true. And I think I'm actually, I've never been like a glam girl. Like I'm so barely any makeup, even though I could use much more. But I'm just kind of, I don't think I'm lazy. I'm just sort of like,
You're natural.
just kind of going for life and like how much time do I really have to do this? So
Right.
finding a good hairstylist who can cut it so it works.
Yeah.
And you can just go. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So you look great. And I sent out a message to people that we were doing this together, and I got lots of messages back. But my cousin lives in Vancouver and was at the conference.
Was she?
Yep, that you
No
just
way.
did.
That's
yeah.
fun.
And she just went on and on about what a timely message.
Wow.
And she bought your new book, Rhythms of Renewal, for her daughter. I think Anna's 16.
Yeah.
16, 17. So
It's
yeah.
definitely being read by teenage girls. for
I
sure.
really love that.
I
Because
just
for
got a
some,
message from a 12-year-old who said, I took this on the
Whoa.
airplane with me because she had panic attacks. And I was like, come on, She's like,
wow.
I just think how awesome. I wish I had learned some of those tools at that age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's what hit me because my cousin is about, I don't know, she's in her 40s, she's super hip, and I knew it would connect with her, but it was very cool for her to say. She has 4 daughters. She's like, this is just amazing for our whole family.
Wow.
So, and I think you're right. I think anxiety and stress are things we've given words to and language to. It's part of the conversation. We're all dealing with it in different ways. And I think that is good because I asked my mom, who's reading your book, like, is this a conversation you had with your mom?
Yeah.
Like, was stress and anxiety something that was easily talked about? But before we get too deep in, she said no.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine they would.
Yeah, she said no.
Because and they had different barriers. They had different obstacles coming at them for their generation.
Sure.
But everything was so external in our
Yeah.
moms and their moms. Like, you just toughed it out. You know?
Yeah.
You just put on a happy face and you were fine. And
Wow,
and I don't think there was a whole lot of internal processing.
Yeah.
It wasn't a
think you're
generation of counseling.
It's so true. So true.
Yeah, which meant there was probably a lot of more inner turmoil, but things never actually got to surface. And yeah, there was just stigma with it.
It's so funny. My mom says that. Like, we got into the Enneagram together a couple years ago, and she said that. She said her and her friends are kind of just coming into their own on a lot of deeper issues and levels and just uncovering things that there was no space for that conversation created. On the flip side, I think a lot of meaning was built in with obligations that they had with their parents and just things that you did that I think I underestimate. Like that, even that thought when I moved here, my whole family's in Canada, and just now my grandpa got sick and my mom's having back surgery. And it's the first time that hit me like, wow, I need to fly back. How do I do this? My mom would have been there for her mom. Yeah. And I'm here.
Right.
What does this look like?
Such a different world, because this is like such a deeper conversation of how those generations survived. But this idea, I'm just going to unpack it for a second.
Yeah, no, I want you to.
So Viktor Frankl, I'm a huge fan. I talk about in the book.
Yep,
and
I've heard you mention
and
him.
Dreaming Again and the Create Rhythm, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But he lived in the 40s. He was a Holocaust survivor. And so he was a psychiatrist who would treat suicide survivors in Vienna. But he was Hebrew. He was Jewish man. And so when the Holocaust came, they wanted to offer him a work visa to the States to avoid being basically shipped off to a concentration camp. Yeah. But he knew his parents would still have to go, so he let it run out, and he was sent like everyone else.
Wow.
But he was brilliant, and so he was a leading psychiatrist for his generation, and people compared him to Freud or Adler. And so they said Freud would say that we're made for pleasure, and Adler would say we're made for power, but Frankl borrowed from his Hebrew faith and always said we're made for meaning. And so he defined meaning by 3 things, which is your work, your love, and your bravery and suffering. And he said, this is what we're talking about right here. The thing that crux for me is bravery and suffering is actually governed when you're governed by what you must do and by what you ought to do, not by what you want to do. And
that's true.
And he said that we're not actually made to govern ourselves, which is partly why we are having an existential crisis so much. It's healthy and great to go to counseling. But at some point, it's supposed to actually take you to a point of resolution, healing, and then productivity. And then responsibility. Freedom comes with responsibility.
Right.
And so the idea is like, freedom's not for yourself. Paul says in Galatians 6, don't use it for yourselves, use it to serve one another in love. Wow. That's how freedom grows. So even this is biblical, obviously. He's borrowing from this. But he said that... He said in the generations before us, they always ask those questions like, what must I do today? Well, I have to hunt for food to feed my family. Right. It's not optional. Right? And then they would say, then a little bit later, they were governed by what ought I to do. And it was always to care for their own. It was always to care for the elderly, to care for the sick.
That makes sense.
You know, it was this duty around family. It wasn't questioned. It wasn't optional. Again, very much governed by what ought I to do. Not just must, but ought. And he said, but now today we are very much governed by what we want. And so
so misleading.
Right. So he's saying in general, and I mean, he died at 97, like 2 decades ago. But he was saying in that century, he said, when we become a people governed by what we want to do, we will implode.
Wow.
Because we are not actually made to be the boss of ourselves. Like we have
Wow.
we have a higher power, or whatever you see as God or faith outside of ourselves, that we are actually we submit to. Like, you know, there are rules, and we talk about this in the book. There are boundaries within the rhythm, a life of rhythm.
Yeah.
That when you stay within those constraints, you flourish. When you get
Yeah.
outside of them, you begin to chaos ensues and you start to fall apart.
Wow.
So part of it is like, do we have self-governance with technology, with diet, with exercise, with
Yep.
serving, with caring, with, you know, and I think it gets harder and harder for the next generation because they just
Wow.
are less duty bound or less responsibly bound. And then that's why he said, and this is the end and I'm going to shut up.
No,
he
this is
said
great.
that he said that this existential crisis, which is what so many of us are having, like, does my life have meaning? Am I actually living a life of significance? Does it
Yeah.
matter if I'm here? I mean,
Yeah.
these are the deeper questions of mental illness, right?
Yes.
Is my life even
Wow.
worth living, right? Why am I here? But he said these questions fundamentally root from a society of affluence and boredom. So
Oh, wow.
it's really sobering for me because I kind of feel like I came from a
Wow.
generation where we had a lot of duty and responsibility. We had I had 4 siblings, like including me. My parents were Christian school teachers, didn't make hardly any, you know, money. So you know, Saturdays were chores and like helping each other out. And
Yep.
riding my own bike to school if I was late.
Yeah.
Keeping everybody else late.
Yeah.
There was a whole lot of personal responsibility
Yeah.
that we had to carry probably at younger ages.
Yeah.
Which I think actually propels us today, you know, taking
Totally.
agency over our future, going, well, I had to figure this out when I was in college, so I'm
Yeah.
going to have to keep figuring it out when I'm in my 40s.
Wow.
Whereas if we never actually are raising kids to have to figure some things out the hard way and feel like they're holding the bag if it drops, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then they actually have such a sense of delayed adolescence, and then they are also not governed by what they ought to do, and that's, I think, the bigger concern when we talk about mental health, because part of the root of anxiety, he says, is unfulfilled responsibility. It means, you know, you're made for something and you're not doing it. You're actually
Wow.
shrinking back, and so you're almost covered in a sense of purposelessness, like.
Yeah.
Who am I? Why am I here? Does my life have meaning? Like,
Yeah.
We're asking these questions, but ultimately, like, part of that meaning comes from us taking responsibility, from us honoring commitment, from us giving our word and fulfilling it, you know?
Wow.
Working and submitting under authority, not having a rebellious heart, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and some
Yep.
of those things, like, the Holy Spirit's really, like, a huge part of that, us even catching wind of that,
Yeah.
you know? And some of those things are caught, not taught, you know?
Right.
And I think the good thing about this conversation is not like saying to the person who's struggling mentally, like, oh, it's going to be okay. Like, we're going to put all the pads around the wall to protect you.
Sure.
No, it's more to say, hey, life actually is hard. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And the beauty of you talking about it now is that you're going to have tools and resources to equip you so
Yeah.
that you can walk through hard, have confidence when you face hard, knowing that it's not the end of your story,
Yeah.
that you're not alone,
Yeah.
that you can access faith, obviously,
Yeah.
if you choose to, and that the whole point of your pain is that it will become purpose. Like, you will use it to help someone else.
The point of your pain is it will become purpose. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, that's what I got when I read the book. So maybe take us to the beginning, before you wrote the book, and your own kind of journey and struggle through anxiety and panic attacks and coming to a place of peace as an actual, like, rhythm, not just, I broke through and now I'm back.
Yeah.
And now I broke through, which maybe it was like that for
Yeah,
a while.
yeah.
But I think what I loved so much is you're talking about breakthrough as a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an important part of the conversation. So anyway, start at the beginning for those
Sure.
maybe who haven't read yet.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So I'm 45, so I'm owning it. But I
Yeah.
have 4 kids from age 18, 16, 14, and 6. So my 18-year-old was born when I was 26, and
Wow.
I found out 6 months later. No, not months later. 6 hours after he was born that he had signs of Down syndrome. So that was confirmed within a week, and then that changed my life because I was still working full time, thought I would stay working full time after maternity leave. That's
Yeah.
all I had, again, seen modeled by my parents.
Right.
Even though my mom was a teacher, there was very much this like personal responsibility and home kind of juggling thing that I had always grown up with.
Okay.
And yet about 8 months in, he was up to 8 hours of therapy a week, and I felt like I was kind of flailing, and I couldn't lead at work anymore and be what I think. And so I knew the Lord was leading me home. And so I resigned about a year in and had and in some ways, a lot of my meaning had always been derived by my work, by my accomplishments.
I relate to that.
There's this need I had as a firstborn to be, able to measure significance on some way, because that felt like that would open opportunities for other things and give me more personal freedoms, but really just opportunities, I guess, is probably a better word. And so when I quit all that and I come home and then we're just like on baby cycle, like, you know what I'm saying? Like baby, nurse for a year, slowly wean, get pregnant again, baby, nurse for a year. So we did that for 6 years. I was like every 2 years had a baby. And I just remember at one point, probably 5 years in, being like, I don't even recognize myself.
Wow. Yes. I can only imagine you had even more factors involved and more children. But girl, like, I feel like this is so key for people listening right now, because I don't think we think we're allowed to say that either. And I felt the exact same way. Like, I had to keep touring because it's what Chris and I both do for a living. So we couldn't completely step back, but I was wrestling with the Lord over, okay, how come now you grew our family and our career simultaneously? Like, I've worked at this for 15 years. Yeah. But how come now or the career side, not the baby side, and it just all compounded. And I remember like being backstage before our first show. Ziggy was 6 weeks old. We took both kids out when they were 6 weeks old. Wow. And I couldn't get my skinny jeans on. I didn't fit any of the clothes I was supposed to wear on stage. And so it was a different angle. I didn't stay home. I went out. And I think a part of that kept me sane, actually, which is really interesting. I didn't see that at the beginning. Yeah. But being able to maintain a bit of, because it's like a complete career change.
Yeah. For sure. I was reflecting recently because I'm thinking I started working when I was 15 at Chick-fil-A, and I don't think I ever not worked for 11 years. Right. And then having a baby, then 2 more, and the grief of like just not even knowing his future up. Like every day was kind of a laying down, a surrender, a stripping of kind of like my old version of, if it is to be, it is, just very much self-sufficient. And then the Lord's like, we're going to pause. Because I really left to my own, I think I would have just barreled through, because that's what I knew. It was like kind of a little bit of survival instincts. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes when you're raised in homes where everyone is kind of like taking that kind of responsibility, you're wired to just intuitively be resilient in most circumstances, and you're just like, oh well, if the door shuts here, we'll go here, which is what I talk about at the beginning of the book, where my claustrophobia from that relapse moment of that panic attack was really more this sense of feeling trapped and not being able to do anything to actually make a way of escape, having to be so dependent. And it reminded me of, I think it all began with Cade, like how
I wanted to ask you that. Do you think that it all did start there? Like, did you have panic attacks at that time?
No, but the day he was born, it was quick. It was like, he's only 4.5 pounds full term. You have no fluid. I was like, what? How am I just now hearing this? I had to ask for an ultrasound at the end, and because I felt like my stomach was actually shrinking. Wow. And my face was swelling. And there is like a name for that when you start to store fluid in the wrong spots, but you lose it. I forget what it's called. Wow. And so they're like, you have no fluid. And his heart rate was dropping in the 60s, which is really cerebral palsy. Like, that's when, brain damage begins, because there's not enough blood going to the brain. And so they said they like literally took me from that 40 ultrasound and just said, you're having them right now. Like, so they gave me an epidural. It didn't kick in very fast. And so they wheel me in, give me a second one. And so because I got twice the amount of medication I should have had, while I'm on the table and they're trying to get him out through a C-section, I feel that smothering coming over, like the paralysis was going up into my lungs and my mouth. And I felt like I couldn't get a breath. So like kind of that buried alive feeling, like you're suffocating slowly. And my husband, I joke about it when I tell the story now because that's been enough time, but the doctor's like, if you stop breathing, we can breathe for you. I'm thinking, that's not the reassurance I was looking for. I'm like, don't. And I'm like, I'm lying. And so one thing that I found later, like I didn't have any panic attacks after that moment, but it did create a traumatic moment that my body, there's a book called Your Body Keeps a Score.
Yeah, I just took it out of the library.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Wow.
And it just talks about your brain, how you can have flashbacks or certain things can trigger.
Wow.
Where your body was under duress, and it will just, and it'll take the craziest things, because I had 9 years, and a lot of things had happened. Is like Cade had to go to the ER a lot because he had RSV as an infant, and his airways are smaller, so he would smother faster. So it was like always about breath. It was always about like, let's make sure he doesn't stop breathing.
Wow.
And get him to the ER. We would keep the video monitor by our bed, run downstairs in sweats and flip-flops in the middle of the night, even in winter, and get him in with like an epinephrine shot within like 4 minutes.
Wow.
To the ER from our house. And that happened like up till 9 years old. And then the other thing is he would always dart off. He would just run. He would just like, he thought it was fun.
Right.
You know? Like I was at Mall of Georgia, and I had to have all of mall security because I have 3 kids, and they're all like triplets because he didn't start walking till he was 3. Potty trained at 6. So I felt like I just was very much, I didn't have a lot of extra time to mull over the life I lost because it was always just like, you know.
Kidding.
But there was a heightened panic stress state.
Yeah.
And so when you have a stressful thing, it releases cortisol in your body that stays for 4 hours actually. So you're always like overreacting and heightened in your fight or flight response mode.
Sure.
So the brain just can't stop firing.
Wow.
So while I wasn't having panic attacks, I remember just feeling so easily triggered. Like, where's Kate? Like any party, like where's Kate? Because we would have to have mall security. We went to New York. We had to have park rangers help us find him. He got lost in Queens, crossed 2 streets. Like he would just dart, and he would never be afraid. We were the ones freaking out. He was just like, hey, I'm exploring.
Wow.
So because of all those things, when New York it just felt to me, I was so afraid of like losing him in that city, him not being very verbal at 9 and a half. I had my first panic attack on an airplane after 4 months of moving there.
Wow.
And it was
on an airplane. Oh.
Yeah. So, and the crazy thing now is, I mean, in short, I'll get to the end. It lasted for over a year, and it was very much rooted in claustrophobia. It was this feeling of like, if I don't get out of here, I'll die. It was just a smothering, trapped feeling.
Wow.
And I could never get a deep breath, which is usually now for me, even today, if I'm like I'm kind of feeling right now as I talk about it, it's just my body's going like, you're reliving an experience where you felt like you could never really breathe. Wow. Which to me, in the end, was the day he was born. Wow. Ultimately. But all that to say, a year in, like God really flooded me with peace one night when I just cried out for rescue in the middle of the night, and I didn't have another one for like 7 years until the book began. Wow. So, and the craziest thing is from that moment on, I really felt like flooded with peace that wasn't mine. And I was doing a lot of these things that we write about in the renewal book, The Rhythms of Renewal, like those 4 rhythms. I was walking all the time. I was eating healthier. I was going on artist dates and like creatively stimulating my mind, and with community, good connection with friendships. I was working very hard to like do all the things. I wasn't on medication, so I was just kind of like, when I would pay attention to my body, and I would just say, hey, I feel joy. I feel great gratitude. I feel happy. What are the reasons I feel this way? What did I just do? I was like taking inventory of my life at all times to just see what are the
things. That's a good tip right there.
That feed me. What are the things that drain me? If I'm starting to spiral and think horrible thoughts, I probably haven't got out of the house.
Right. The crazies have set in.
And I haven't talked to anyone out loud besides the people in my brain.
You're like, why do I feel this way? Wait, there are some real reasons I feel this way.
Real reasons. Real reasons. And I think that's true for all of us, though. Like, so many people love, like, the serenity of, being out in nature. But at some point, you have to be around humans, and you actually have to engage them.
Sure.
And I think any extreme of anything gets off.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's a book about rhythms. It's like you do these 4 ways of like integrated in your everyday life, so you don't get stuck in one.
Yeah.
Like you could kill it and create and be a workaholic, and then not recognize your family. You know.
So you can be really, really strong at one rhythm.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I really wanted to focus on the rest rhythm, because I feel like that, for me, if that one's not happening, nothing else happens to full capacity.
Yes.
And I haven't done the quiz. There's a quiz.
Yes.
We'll link to it in the show
It's
notes.
RebekahLyons.com/quiz.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
so you can
it's
figure
easy.
out what you're strong
Yeah,
in.
everyone has one dominant rhythm, and there's 40 questions, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you'll probably have an idea what it is before you even start, but it's real fast, multiple choice. And so it'll tell you what you're strongest in, what's most natural or effortless for you, and then it gives you tips on how to strengthen the other 3.
So the 4 are rest, restore, create, connect.
Yeah, I do it the other way.
Okay.
Rest, restore, connect, create.
Connect, create. Okay. And rest is the first one.
Yeah.
So
and
is it
they
intentionally?
build on each other.
Okay.
Yeah. They actually, there is a reason for that order.
Okay.
So rest and restore are input rhythms. Connect and create are output. So
I think I've got the output happening.
Yeah. And a lot of people have.
A lot, but the input.
Connect is the highest response I get on
Okay.
rhythm. And then rest is obviously the lowest. That's why 77% of us are feeling physical symptoms of stress.
Yeah.
As a society.
I think just
It's
even
because we don't
pausing right
rest.
there, I think that it's like impossible to do life well when you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Like I really, which is why it's so real for all the young moms out there, any moms, any stage.
Yeah.
And even that's honestly the college student that's like
Yeah.
in the middle of going through their degree, but don't even, I remember feeling a bit of stress going, but what do I do with this after? Like whatever's kind of keeping you up at night literally is causing stress and anxiety. And
We didn't have language for it then. We didn't call it that then. I
Right.
think we were just like, overwhelmed probably on some
yeah.
level.
Yeah.
But it was just like you just did it. You know,
Yeah.
just put your head down and did it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So what's the easiest for you and what's the hardest rhythm for you?
I would say my default through life has been create.
Yeah.
I grew up just playing piano since I was 6, trumpets in 4th through 12th grade.
I played
band
trumpet in high
person,
school. Yes.
marching, symphonic jazz. I was a drum major.
So you
youth
did all the
symphony.
things. You were kind of just going all the time.
Never stopped.
Yeah.
So create it made me feel like I was alive.
Right.
And so that was a really good thing. And I would say probably, I remember moving to Nashville and people were like, I think you're entering the season of rest. I'm like, I don't want to rest. Like, why would
That
it?
doesn't
like,
sound
you could rest when
appealing
you're
to
dead,
me.
right? Like there was this, I
Yes.
really wasn't honoring that whole idea that God's not casual about. It's
Right,
really
no,
not
it's pretty
optional
clear.
to him.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I just was hell-bent on the, run the race. And then now I know you cannot run if you cannot rest. This idea that rest
So true.
precedes blessing on day 7 of creation, and how you don't run to earn it rest, you run fueled from rest. So I now look at Sunday as my rest day, but it's still the first day of the week. Rest begins before I
that's
start.
good. That's good.
So Sabbath, sometimes people are like, you work all week and like TGIF, I can't wait to crash. I've earned rest. But I'm more like, no, I'm actually, Sunday is a Sabbath to just consider, pause, reflect, enjoy, possibly prepare and plan. Not mentally. I don't write stuff down and like send stuff to my assistant. Like that would be obnoxious on Sunday afternoon.
She's like, hey.
But I am kind of going, I want to make sure I feel full. Like my soul feels full, my heart feels full. I feel knit and connected with my people before I even begin tomorrow.
That's good. I feel like
So
that's
that's
really
the
helpful
planning
because
part.
Sunday, Monday can be a bit of a swirly, strange space for us because we live on the road so much too. We had to create a Sabbath that wasn't Sunday.
Yeah.
So we're almost always output on Sundays.
That's true.
And we were missing that. Like 2 years of 200 shows a year. And we were just like,
wow.
why do I, kind of like what you said, like, why do I feel so like I'm working from stress? I'm not working from rest. I'm just kind of
you
like
don't really
going
get
like a maniac.
pause. You don't have a permission on some weird level. You do.
Yeah.
You have to give it to yourself. But
And
for
I wasn't.
some reason,
I wasn't carving it out.
Yeah.
Because that's the reality. Like we're all busy.
Yeah.
So saying I don't have time for that is you choosing to not have time for that. And that's what I was doing. But also it was a new rhythm and pace for us. It was this like new band. Records are out. Songs are clicking. We've dreamed of these moments. But now I remember having a breakdown on the floor of one of the airports. I think I was in Washington, and I was like, babe, I can't get on the next flight. Like, I can't keep up this pace. And he looked at me going, whoa, if you can't keep up that pace, like you thrive at like multitasking and doing all the things. But I hadn't built rest into my life.
Right.
And can you kind of talk about, because for someone like me who's an achiever and I'm a 3 and I like to go after life and I come alive, I know what brings me to life, and I think those are really, really good things. But how does an achiever rest well? Yeah. How does somebody who is in that sweet spot and loving life for the most part, but what's their strength becomes, or their superpower becomes their weakness if you're not aware of it?
Yeah, for sure. Well, for the results-oriented person, I would just go ahead and preach to you the results of stress. I'm sorry, not stress. And then also the results of rest.
Yeah.
So if you can actually see the tangible fruit of what rest will actually bring you, more exponential energy, creativity, a lot of the rhythms of rest is about like routines for deep sleep. Well, I read a book a year ago on rest, and I'll give you the link. It's not a faith book, it's just science, and it's this historical account of like, you know, whether it was artists or scientists or past presidents, people who do like authors, volumes of work in their lifetimes, right? They didn't have, you know, smartphones, so they had more time. Right. But they would do like, you know, 50 novels in 30 years, or, you know, all these experiments. The point is they all took naps. They all took naps. Some like they all slept well. They all took like walks after lunch, took a nap, and then they would do afternoon correspondence, which I guess is our version of email. They would only really create in the mornings because that's when they're most fruitful. Yep. Subconscious was just working for them. So 7 to noon. Yep. And then they would just kind of do a little bit of like catching up later in the day. But they did so much big output projects because
you think they're working like all day every day.
Because they're not scattered. They're not just like, oh, I forgot the milk, I gotta go back to the store, right? Because usually your time is actually less efficient when you don't rest, because
you're not really
forgetting
present
everything, or you're like going to the room and like, why did I come in here? Like,
you're absent-minded, you're not present.
So when you rest, when you actually like a chapter on routines for deep sleep, and then hopefully that works, and then the next morning I have a chapter on morning routine, like here's how you start your day. Make sure you don't like avoid this or neglect it. It sets the tone for the next 15 hours. So just that 1 hour, it sets
like the way you start is the way you end, pretty much.
And people are like, I don't have time for a quiet time or a time. I'm like, no, you don't not. And it's not like you have to like go through, you know, volumes of books, but this idea of just like make sure gratitude is, and prayer and scripture or liturgy, so prayer, liturgy, and scripture, gratitude, and I have 4 things I can't count.
That might have been 4.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was 4. Yeah.
See, I didn't sleep as well last night.
We got a tag team, girls. I was about to say, so my 2 sons, we decided to let them share a room. Oh, you can see on my face how well that's working. I was like,
I know, really, 2 of mine are sharing a room right now too.
Really? Yes. I like looked at Chris. I was like, babe, we're doing a podcast on rest, and I slept 1 hour last night. No. I'm like, I've been up since 4, if that helps you feel any better. It actually does. I was like, have you mastered this where you never get it wrong?
When I first got here, you're like, you've figured this out. And I was like, well, truthfully, that's why it's called rhythm. It's rhythm versus resolution. And I'll talk about this more when January rolls around, because rhythm is this every day is a chance to begin again. That's
very freeing.
Yeah. It's like, it's renewal means to be made new, spiritually alive. And God's saying, I'm doing a new thing again and again and again. That's like good. He's the author of life. He's the regenerative God, which means every single day, just walking with him in rhythm actually makes you become new. Whether it's your mind, your body, your relationships, your
Wait, I don't have to be a step ahead?
No.
Really?
You actually just be in step.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
That's revolutionary.
No, and part of the reason why we are so adverse to rest is that because of the industrial and digital revolution, we have machines that have to be on all the time out of efficiency. Right. But we're humans, not machines. Yeah. So we've got to give ourselves a break.
Imagine that.
And I think this book really is a call to being human again, and not trying to do more than we were made to do, because I think that's a little like Babel. Like, we want to be like God, and we want to just kind of say like we're invincible, and then our bodies are like, no, we're not.
You're actually not. And because you didn't figure that out on your own, now we're gonna crash.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
when God, he even said rest the land every 7 years. And I even think about that professionally.
Yeah,
Like, I
that's
would have
good.
taken this whole year as a Sabbath because I started writing 7 years ago.
Wow.
And I instead adopted a little girl from China, brought her home. So I did bench myself professionally for 9 months. Really, I went a year ago. So November, we were left for China. So I would say
Wow.
Thanksgiving to now, I didn't really start back up work until end of August. So for the last 3, because of the book,
Wow.
I had to work. I really didn't have an option.
Yeah.
But I remember
Your team's like,
Yeah.
so are you going
you're
back
like
in?
about that book that we've invested in, and you have written. You're going to help us launch it,
That'd be a good plan.
But I remember even with this book, the Lord has actually taken it leaps and bounds beyond my first 2 with me, like, again, honoring rest, because as of August, I hadn't said, this is a crazy thing, I hadn't announced it, I hadn't put a website out, I hadn't done a pre-order, I had done 1 Instagram post in May, that is the only thing I said about it.
Wow.
And the Today Show called and wanted to book me for October
I was
1.
going to say, if you don't know, like,
But that's my point. And then now
You're
it's going
just
to
like-
be in like 1,200 Target stores, January 1, and
my
Costco
goodness.
and Walmart. And I'm like,
What?
I'm just getting told this stuff.
wow.
And I really think God's like, you know what I said about rest?
Right.
You know what I said about Sabbath? And even like that year that you gave back to me, because I remember this summer going, God, like, I have the least expectations of any book I've written and the least
Wow.
amount of energy to launch
Wow.
those expectations.
That's incredible. That's an awesome
and I
testimony.
think it gives him a chance to show off, and he's like, this is actually what it means to honor
Right.
the rhythms, like
Right.
trusting that if you have done the create rhythm and now you're cycling back to rest, that I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
and I think we sometimes just need to be reminded of that in
Yes,
each
100%.
other's work, because sometimes we see someone else just killing it and we're like, I wish I could do that, and I just don't have enough energy. And you're
Yeah.
like, no, maybe you should just stop for a minute and then like poke your head out later when you really feel inspiration has come. That's why I wrote Tech Detox, that chapter in Rest.
Yeah.
Because that was me taking all of last summer off Instagram for the
Wow.
first time in 7 years. I was convicted at Lent, and I was like, it's not a big deal. And then come June, my dad had passed in April, and I could feel depression coming on, and I just
Wow.
said, I'm not going to hemorrhage publicly. In fact, I'd called Bob, our mutual friend Bob,
Wow. Yeah.
and I was like, what do I do? He's like, you just need to get offline, get your people around.
Wow.
And I came back to life last summer because I didn't have my
Wow.
phone with me basically the whole summer.
This is huge for for people listening right now. For me, I just feel like that is not our gut reaction when we
Right.
feel anxiety, stress, and depression coming on, is
Yeah.
to like disengage from social
Yeah.
media
Yeah.
or from our phones. I don't think that's what we do. We blog about it instead, which sometimes that's great. But sometimes, I mean, it's a real balance. I feel like when God's asking me to speak from my lesson,
Yeah.
But you have to be
haven't learned
real-
that lesson.
right?
I mean,
or from
I
like the
don't
middle
mind
of the
a real
learning,
time.
like
Yeah,
sometimes.
But for me, I was like, I have lived publicly for 7 years now.
Yeah.
I've written 2 books, 2 Bible studies about it. I've, done a lot of speaking. That's the funny thing. I mean, I got all my panic attacks on planes, and then all of a sudden I'm on a plane every week to
Wow.
actually teach about the rescue of God.
Wow.
And so God redeemed that old place of panic is now a sanctuary in the sky. I'm in the Word. I'm listening to worship. I'm just like
A sanctuary in the
journaling.
sky. I love
Yeah,
that.
and I'm just not. It so prepares me for that night. I love it. I feel such peace. So it's cool because God's just like, the whole point of you losing your life is that you'll find it again.
that pain to purpose, like
Yeah,
what you said,
yeah.
which that's so encouraging. I feel like, to listen to you tell your story. I mean, and we're only getting such little snippets. You have to go read all of the books and follow along with you, but because you actually looked it in the face, I think that, man, it's so hard to do that, and you have to pause and rest to do that too.
Yeah.
Like
and
when
you,
you're feeling
you can't
it come
look
on.
it in the face until you stop.
Yeah,
you know?
you can't. No.
Yeah,
you're right.
And there's a chapter in the Rest Rhythm called Examine and Confess, and that was the heart of a mother to another mother, right? It was me, like, one day when I was supposed to be finishing my book, and I usually towards the end you get like avoidance, and so you're like, I'm gonna clean out my iPhoto, which
Right,
has like,
yeah.
which has like 10,000 photos in it.
Right.
I'm just gonna start.
I'm just gonna
like,
be here.
I'm like at a cabin supposed to be writing, and I just see this whole scene play out from 7 years prior, where I was
Wow.
writing my first book, like head buried in like sweatshirt, and the kids had been out front. We had left the city for 2 months while I wrote the first book, and they had made this picnic in the woods, and in the front, and my husband's just capturing everything, and then it's back to me and he's capturing. But it was like life. And I was like, I didn't see it till 7 years later when I'm writing a chapter on Examine and Confess. And I like wept because I was like, this whole magic was happening and I was completely oblivious to it. And I'm like, what were the moments that I missed because I wouldn't give myself permission to rest? And then it was also a chapter not about guilt or shame, more about release and receive, right?
Right.
But you can't, and what I said is you can't know what needs to be confessed until you get quiet. And that you can't heal what is hidden. Like this idea of like, we feel all these physical symptoms of spinning out. Yeah. And so we know all is not well, but we can't begin to take inventory of our lives. Like what's right, what's wrong, what's confused, what's missing. That's chapter 1 of the book, right? Like take inventory, like pause long enough to go, what's wrong? Yeah. What's right?
Yeah. And honor, like love yourself enough to do that.
To take the time for that.
Which is hard.
With your spouse, your best friend, your mom, your sister, whoever, the person who knows you, who you feel safe to really confide in. Yeah. I think that
because it's not the same as Instagram. It's not the same as posting and going, feeling this, want to talk to the person feeling that. That's awesome. That's level 1. That's cool that you shared that like surface level of the lesson or the moment.
Right.
But I found myself too in the seasons of a lot of output. And I love our fans and our friends, but I wasn't talking to my people.
It's true.
And I was too tired from the exchange of the public that I had forgotten to prioritize the private.
Well, and the conviction around that, right? So my best friend for like over 15 years, she's like, you mean well, but you can become a conversationalist of convenience. So when you have someone in front of you and they're like being real and you're like, yeah. And then you realize you're telling more to this stranger than you probably have told your best friend.
I have had those moments
over the last year because you're just there. And you're
it's
like,
so convicting.
It's so convicting because then I was like, wow, I'm seeing friendship for what it's giving me and not for what I'm giving it or giving them. And that was a real sobering, like, slow down. Your people, you have to show pursuit of somebody else, because what happens with like a one-sided relationship with like a reader or an artist or whatever is they so much know about you in ways you don't, and so they're pursuing and you're not required to do anything. You're just like I'm awesome. No, but you know what I mean, like you feel this instant connection because someone's pursuing, but that's a real relationship is costly, right?
We forget that, don't we? Yeah. All good things are costly.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful. So good. I'm so grateful. Like I've had some of the most like significant friendships that have grown out of like people that I met online or people that. So I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I am saying though is make sure you're reserving the deep stuff.
That's good.
Hold that stuff. With those behind closed doors, because what the risk is that you will start to have faux intimacy with people who can't actually ever be there for you ultimately,
and so you're still lonely.
You're still very lonely,
but you're tired because you've put all this output into these faux close relationships. I think that's a big deal.
And I think for you, doing this before you had kids, or me, like this is 9 years in. No, really. Since I started writing, it's only 7 years in. But it's been an intense 7 years, and my kids have gone from ages, like tweens to now high school, late elementary to high school. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, they're going to leave home like next year. Wow. One of them. And one of them's graduating this year, and another girl's a freshman, and then I've got a kindergartner. But the point is like, I'm staring that down going, when they're young, you think you have forever. Right. And then you get 8 years down the road and you're like,
stop.
No, I'm not kidding. I'm like, I'm going to ball myself. Yeah. The point is if I could go back and tell myself even a decade ago, like the work and the vocational call won't ever fade. But because it's in you, right? And it was there before.
Well, I made that probably wasn't a big highlight for you, but that was a big highlight for me. That the vocational work won't fade because God, it's in you. It's part of how you're made. Yeah. Because I think we believe the lie that it will. I think we believe the lie that if we don't do it by a certain age and stage of life, that you've missed the boat.
No.
Too bad, bye-bye dream, bye-bye
No, because
whatever.
you were that person when you were 5 and 10 and 15.
Right. And like, I think it's
just keeps coming
encouraging that you started writing, even though you probably could have ages earlier.
Well, I didn't even imagine, but I'm like the testimony of a late bloomer. I was 37.
I think
when
that
I wrote
is
my first book.
I think a lot of people are going to be encouraged, because I feel like it's so false too, because sometimes people have a huge following online, but they haven't done any of the work, or there's not much to say yet.
Yeah.
But I just think that I believe that lie a lot, that because I thought if I didn't sign a record deal by the time I was 21, I should just move on.
Yeah.
And that wasn't. I signed a record deal when I was 30.
Yeah.
And married and having babies and
come
not
on.
skinny.
That-
Like,
you need to be preaching that, because
Yeah.
I agree. I think we need to and I think that's part of the pressure and stress. Teens, college, young, the
Yes.
anxiety they feel is like their life has to be so significant while they're still
that's the
actually
right way to say it.
growing up. I'm like, your life is significant, but like, let yourself receive.
Yeah.
Let yourself delight. Let yourself have fun. Enjoy your people.
Right.
And if you want to get around and like strum and like write songs, that,
Right.
you know, with your people, and that something has a moment where you just like do shows, like
Right.
let it organically happen.
Yeah. I don't think that's the message
It's
that's
not,
being
and it's
preached.
not, and we live in Nashville, so there's extra pressure there. But in
Yeah.
general, like, fame is not significance,
No.
whatsoever. You
You're
know,
right.
I think connection is one of the most important. I mean, all rhythms are essential, but connection, like the loneliness epidemic, is is because we are so fragmented online.
Yeah.
And we think all relationships have to happen through a screen now.
Yeah.
And so I would just urge people to go, hey, as much as you can, go back to old school. You
Yeah.
know, my friends are getting light phones for all their teens.
Right.
You know, because it's just kind of like, oh, I can text a few people. I can call mom and dad.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I'm not going to actually waste a whole lot. I want to be more integrated.
Yeah.
And like, you know, and I think
And what
that's
you
going to
said.
help our mental health.
I agree with you, and I think that if it's a part of your business, like it is for Chris and I, just having really good boundaries around it,
Yeah.
like you guys talk about, like having. I remember when you and Gabe said, you know, you create these bedtime routines for your toddlers when they're small because it's necessary. But wait, we need a bedtime
We do.
routine.
We
I was
do.
like, babe, we need a bedtime.
We do.
You know, it's really
It's true.
important. You're
It's
right.
so true.
And putting the phone away so you look each
Yeah.
other in the face
Yeah.
is face is important.
And you know what? And I don't know, like Gabe and I have been married 22 years, and we see actually the difference of our marriage pre-smartphone.
Wow.
And it's basically divided.
That's
it
a
in
whole
half.
nother podcast.
Yeah,
Wow.
it is.
I bet.
I agree, because we actually had to lament it the other day. He's like, I remember the days when like there was never a distraction.
Wow.
I'm like, gosh, that's heartbreaking.
It
You
is,
know?
isn't it?
And it just makes me go, gosh, okay. I thought I pumped the brakes a lot, which I have, praise God, but
Right.
I think there's more to be had.
Wow.
Because I want to live a long life. I mean, God knows how long, obviously. I
Sure.
don't, but at 45, I wrote it in my journal in May, and I was like, I'm so old, I have a 6-year-old, what am I doing? And then God just stopped me in my tracks. He's like, stop it. You may only be half done. Like,
Wow.
stop acting like you're so old and your life is over and you're running a race like your butt's on fire, because if you don't
Wow.
get it all done, it's not going to get done. It's like, you may just be warming up.
Wow.
Chill out.
I need to hear that. I think everybody needs to hear that. Like, God's timing is the only good timing there is.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and I agree. Like, I had kids later than I thought I would. We've been married 15 years. We haven't done anything in the order I thought I would or
Yeah.
thought we should. I had to like wrestle all of that down because it
Yeah.
was just like God did so many things out of timing,
Right.
out of step that,
Right.
you know, you're supposed to hit these marks at certain
Yeah.
times. But I think that's also where the trying to be in control of what we're not supposed to be in control of also probably causes that stress and anxiety.
That's true.
You know, and I even feel like, because I had a season this last year where I attached the word stuck to how I was feeling until God really changed my perspective. And I was like, you're not stuck, you're just on pause. And like, you need to be here so that you can receive new perspective from me. And we
Yeah.
can't move on
Yeah.
until we're here.
For
And this
sure.
isn't bad. And this isn't forever.
Well, and it's almost like finding the intention of pause. Like,
Right.
you know, I felt like when Joy came home, you know, same. I was like, people were still calling for podcasts, and I'm like, I'm going to go play Go Fish, and if she snaps for an hour, I mean, it literally
I love
thrust me
that.
back to like 15
Sure.
years ago.
Sure.
And I was like, because she was still with me until she started kindergarten in August, and I thought, all right, well, I can maybe do a podcast from like 1 to 2 from my closet while she naps. Thankfully, she's still napping. But like I was thrust back into that, and it was the first time I saw myself. Someone asked me on a podcast, they were like, how do you think God sees you in this season? And I was like, I almost started bawling. I was like, I haven't even thought about it, because it wasn't about Rebekah producing or accomplishing or being public or seen. I said, I feel like this is a season where I feel like God looks at me and says, this is the whole version of you.
Wow.
Like, you've always identified yourself as like, I'm a wife, or I'm a mom, or I'm a writer, or I'm a speaker, or I'm like you have all these assets that you think, like these fragments that you kind of grasp on, and you're trying to so desperately like I'm failing here, I need to overemphasize here, or I'm he's like, but what I've been after for you is like a holistic version of who you have been since the day I've knit you in your womb, and all the wiring and the DNA and the passion and the relational drive and the like all those things, when they're actually completely integrated, are for my good and for your good and my glory. And it was almost like he was like, give way make room for the quiet, make room for the hidden, because it only makes the public or the crazy actually more redemptive and beautiful, because you're bringing something you got in the secret place. You know what I'm saying?
You're not just putting it on.
There's
You're
a
not
depth,
just like,
you don't have to contrive, you don't have to force.
You're right.
And then the people who know you, like a friend told me, Mark and Jan Foreman, so that's John Switch, his parents. Okay. And they were with us recently, and they said, what is the goal of parenting? Like, because they're like just parenting awesome gurus. And 2 things: that your kids will want to be your friends when they're 40, and that they'll live out a missional call in the world. And I was like, okay, God, you can make that happen. Like, we're going to be faithful. We're going to slow down. We're going to make room. I don't get it right every day, but I certainly feel like this has been a year of the holistic picture.
Wow. Okay, well, this is so good. I'm like, can I be your friend? Can we do like a private, non-podcast, just teaching session once a week? For sure. Or you come to my house?
For sure.
Oh man, so much. I don't even know where to end, because I don't want to keep you too long, because I know you have more. But if there's one thing you could leave with people that are in the rest category, but they either feel stuck, and they're stuck, but they're also not resting. So they're stationary, they're standing still, but they're not still.
Yeah. I would just say, don't squander this season. There's so much, I would say, there's probably actually a curiosity for learning that needs to emerge. Like, when you stop producing or doing output, it means it's an opportunity to actually till the soil, plant new seeds, have new life and new growth emerge. So what often happens is, when we're output, we start to, over time, just keep doing the same output. Sure. The same way, the same cadence, the same lyrics, whatever it is. Like, there's not an ingenuity in it. And so I've written 3 books, and right now I'm like reading voraciously right now. Like, I'm so curious about certain topics that I've never thought I could actually explore in content. And I was like, oh, I thought I was going to be like the robot, like Christian writer, speaker, teacher. And I'm like, God's like, oh, no. That's not like, this is not a group think. I'm not a group think God. Like, I knit you in such a way that there's going to be curiosities, there's going to be opportunities. You're not going to fit in any one like cookie cutter thing. Wow. You have your own beautiful bent that no one else can replicate. And so if there's a pause moment, I believe that it's because God's like, I'm actually doing a new thing right now, and I'm going to call your attention to it. So whether it's somebody you encounter, or a new relationship, or maybe you're just learning in a new way, and it's like triggering like new life. I would say pay attention to that. Don't squander it by like doing a bunch of returns at Target as much as
it is so easy.
I can get swept up at like Home Goods, and I'm just like, why am I here?
You're on an aisle, and you're like, I don't even have a dog, and I'm looking at like,
I mean, sometimes you have to do it, but like sometimes you're like, if at the end of the day you're more depleted then
Wow.
that wasn't the way to spend your rest. Real rest is actually supposed to rejuvenate.
So really
You.
learning how to rest well, like it's something we actually kind of maybe need
It's
to.
not numbing out. It's
No.
not Netflix binging. It's not like
Right.
eating a carton of
It's
ice
not
cream
like
and laying
only
on the
just
couch.
physical.
That's
It's spiritual
that's called
rest.
escape.
Right.
Like real rest is actually, Jesus says, come into my rest. It actually requires pursuit. So if you want a good
Wow.
Sabbath or a good rest season, like if you, like I know right now, I'm like, I have two more cities I'm in early December, and then I don't have to travel for 7 weeks. I'm pumped because
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I want to finish like these 3 books on these topics.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that the kids and I have these memories, like they'll like write like their you know, their holiday wish list, like
Yeah.
not gifts, but like
Sure,
memories,
like the real
memories.
Yeah, the real
bucket
stuff, the
list
good stuff.
kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it's like, let's make sure that we plan so that the rest is bountiful, kind of.
That makes total sense. You're not just prioritizing, again, your output. You're prioritizing the rhythms of rest so that your whole family has meaning.
Yeah.
And the season has meaning.
You're
not just
making
like, you
memories.
accomplished all
Yeah.
these things. Cool.
Yeah, you're not just like checking off the, you know, the wish
Yeah.
list because you're like, we gotta go see Christmas lights.
Yeah.
Get in the car. You know?
Definitely been there.
Yeah. It's family pictures for the Christmas card. Everyone's stressed
We
out.
always get back from tour on like the 19th of December, and I'm for a few seconds the crazy mom that's
Yeah.
just like, we gotta do all the things, we haven't done this, babe. Oh my
know,
goodness,
I
we're
know.
failing Christmas. Like
I know.
when the whole time my son has been saying to me, he equated seeing Christmas lights with finding Christmas.
Aw.
And that shifted
Wow.
everything for me. He's like, Mama, I found Christmas.
Aw.
The whole tour, he said that the first day of tour, and I had the best Christmas tour ever.
There you go.
Because you can learn to rest in the middle of busy.
Yes,
you can learn to rest in the middle of being stuck. Like
you have to.
those other things are like circumstantial, but what's in here is
Yeah.
what we can kind of take control of
Yeah.
and go, I can build this into my
Right.
life no matter what season I'm in.
Right. So the goal of the book, and this is the end, is that you have a version of each rhythm every day. A small.
That's good.
Like you have to have rest, restore, connect, and create every day. So you have
So
a
at the
daily
end of-
version, a weekly version, a monthly. Like it's more about how much time and intensity you're giving each rhythm based on like an annual version.
Yeah.
Um,
That makes so much
that's
sense
important.
because sometimes I'll come to the end of the day and go, I did a lot, but I don't feel. Anyway, yeah, building rest into whatever season you're in, I think is huge, and making sure that there's a small version of all 4 rhythms in every day. I am going to stop at the end of each day and actually consider.
Yeah, take inventory.
Yeah.
Really like what worked, what didn't.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
it's important to just ask ourselves, even ask each other, you know.
Yeah, like the kids
Like-
are down and kind
yeah.
of sit face to face, like, how is today?
Because see, partly it might be just that you haven't connected yet, you know, because you might
That's
not have
right.
seen each other.
Sometimes
right?
that connection is the 7
connect
o'clock to
rhythm
9
is-
o'clock.
Yeah, the connect rhythm is usually if because it's not always connection when you're working like side by side, head down.
Which is what we do a lot of, and it can,
That's more create.
and it gives the illusion of, we
Yeah.
spent all day together. It's
Yeah.
like, you were
Yeah.
working.
Yeah, Gabe and I do a lot of work days together, but we also we plan like day dates.
Yeah.
because kids have school.
Those are the best.
So we're like, okay, we'll walk, like last week, we'll walk Radnor. And we
Love
still
it.
talked. We almost got like 3 rhythms in because
Yeah.
then you start creating and processing while you're walking.
See, that's bad.
and while
The
you're
achiever, and
connecting.
he's like, I
I
didn't know the rhythms.
But the key is don't bring your phone. Much better chance of
very
connecting without your
challenged.
phone. I know. I was
Very
like, babe, I
challenged.
didn't even bring my phone for. I mean, we went on a hike. Monday was yesterday, National Hike Day. Didn't
Oh.
bring my phone. Gabe's like,
But then I can't get the picture that we hiked. Did
I
it
know
even happen?
exactly. I was like, it's National Hike Day, but like for me, I was just like, I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna do it.
That's
My
good.
soul is more at rest when I just do the opposite of what I might be more prone to do. And if I do that enough times, like when I came back on social after 3 months off, it didn't re-enter the same way. It
That-
didn't have a
yeah.
grip on me like it used to.
It wasn't calling the shots. Right.
No.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for all the wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you for your book.
Thank you.
And to everybody, just follow along with Rebekah. She's amazing. I love you so much, and I just met you.
I
Thanks
love
for
you.
a great
Thanks
convo.
for having me, girl. This was
good.
so great.